Hello everyone. Today what we're going to do is writing trig equations from their graphs. Actually, let's just say trig equations works. Okay. So the first thing is that you really have to remember the form. So the form is f of x or f of theta is equal to plus or minus a, so this could be a positive or a negative, sine of b of x plus c, or it could be the same thing but just with cosine. The big things here are this a, the b, the c, and then whether it's sine or cosine. So again, the a is the amplitude, but it really is the absolute value of a. So if it's -1, then the amplitude is +1. The b just tells you the period, so it's 2 pi over b is the period. But what we're going to be doing today is that b is the number of waves in 2 pi. So if you see that 2 waves happen in 2 pi, then it should say 2x here. And then the c is the midline, so that's what cuts the wave in half horizontally. And then there's this other little thing here that if this is a negative a, it's going to be flipped over the x-axis. So remember, regular sine looks like this. If it's negative sine, then it's going to look like this. Okay, so today it's just that it could be flipped over, and that would be a negative. Same with negative cosine, it would just be flipped over at the bottom. So let's go ahead and do some examples. All right, so what we do before we write the equation is I really like to write out the amplitude, the period, and the midline, because that's going to help me with writing my equation. So the first thing I'm going to start out with is the amplitude. So this is how high up and down it goes from its midline, okay? So here, it's easy to see that this is going up 2 and down 2. Okay, that's the most that it's going up the entire time. So this is your amplitude. This is 2. Okay, then the next thing that I want to see is how long does it take it to get from its original point back to its original point. So starting, let's see, usually we start at the y-axis and then see when does it go back to that point, but that's going to happen somewhere that we can't see on our graph. So we can actually pick a different point, like let's say here, okay, and see how long it takes it to get back to this downward slope. Okay, so here it's at its upward slope, that's not it, but it gets back down to here, right there. Okay, so since it gets back down to there, that took this is 2 pi, and this is also 2 pi. So this entire thing here is 4 pi. Okay, so that's how long it took. 4 pi is your period. Okay, but another thing that you can look at is how many waves happen in 2 pi. So let's add another thing here, this b. So looking in 2 pi, this is the only thing that happens. But remember, this wave, full wave, looks like this, okay? So since the full wave looks like this is only half of a wave. So really, b is 1/2. The other way that you could do this is you could do 2 pi divided by 4 pi, and you would get 1/2. But here we're just going to do 1/2 of a wave occurs in 2 pi. All right, the next thing that we can do is the midline. So here, the midline is what cuts it in half. Since this cuts it directly in half, that is y equals 0. That is your midline, y equals 0. Okay, so now we're going to write our equation. The only other thing that we need for our equation is we need to decide whether this is sine or cosine. So remember, sine is where it is going through, on the y-axis, it goes through the middle, and cosine goes through a max or min right there. So this is cosine, this is sine. So notice this one is going through the middle of the function, so this is going to be sine. So how we're going to start our equation is always y equals, or f of x equals, it doesn't really matter. F of x equals, then we're going to go with the amplitude, so 2. And since this is not flipped upside down like this is going to be positive 2. Then we're going to put sine, since this is a sine function. And then in the parentheses, we're going to put the number of waves in 2 pi, which is this b right here. It's half of a wave. So 1/2 x and then plus the midline on the end. So this is plus 0. But since it's plus 0, I actually don't have to write this 0 here. But let's just go ahead and write it. Okay, so this is your equation of the line. I do expect that this first example is pretty confusing and weird. So what we're going to do is we're just going to do some more examples and see from there. Let me just go ahead and tell you again that we got to this 1/2 by 2 pi divided by 4 pi gives you 1/2. So we'll do that for the other examples just so we have a consistent way of seeing how many waves. Okay, so example number 2. On this one, we're actually going to start with the midline because it's easier to tell from the midline what the amplitude is. So let's start here. This is your midline, okay? This is what cuts your wave directly in half. So this is at y equals -2. And a lot of these, you can just kind of look at it and see where it's going through the middle. Then the amplitude is how high up and down it goes from the midline. So here, it is going up 1 and down 1 from the midline. Okay, so since it's going up 1 and down 1, the amplitude is +1. Now we need to see the period. So how long does it take it to get back to its original position? Well, it's starting here at this little downward slope thing, and it gets back to that point right here. So that amount of time was from 0 to 3 pi. So this is actually, or 3 pi over 2, sorry, 3 pi over 2. So since our period is 3 pi over 2, what we're going to do to find our b value here is we're going to do 2 pi divided by 3 pi over 2. So we're going to keep change flip. So it's going to be 2 pi times 2 over 3 pi, because 2 pi is the same as 2 pi over 1. So we're going to have 2 pi times 2, which is 4 pi, divided by 3 pi. So these pi's are going to cancel out. The b is 4 over 3. Okay, this is kind of a hard example here. Probably won't be as hard in your practice problems. So our equation, y equals, now remember, cosine, the parent function, is going through its maximum value. But notice right here, this is going through a minimum value. So since it's going through a minimum, it's going to be y equals the negative amplitude. So -1. It's cosine because on the y-axis, it's going through a minimum point. Then the number of waves in 2 pi is 4/3. Okay, we got that from this. And we're just going to put x. And then we're going to put our midline on the end, so -2. So this is your equation for this function. And again, this is kind of a harder example, but if you can understand the harder examples, then you should be able to understand the easier examples. Okay, let's move on to the last one. All right, we're going to start with our midline. Okay, so here you can see that the thing that cuts this in half is this line right here. We're looking in half horizontally. So this line is y equals 2. Now we're going to look at our amplitude. All right, notice this is going up 2 and down 2. So our amplitude is 2. Now we're going to look at our period. So starting here, we're looking in the middle of our function, and we're going to see when it goes back to this upward slope here. So going down, gets back right here. So our period is actually 180 degrees. That's how long it takes for one wave. But now, since we're in degrees instead of radians, instead of 2 pi, we're going to use 360 degrees. So for this b value, we're going to do 360 divided by 180, which is 2. Okay. Another thing that you could have looked at is that this b value is how many waves occur in 2 pi, which is 360. So here's one wave, 1, and here's 2 waves, 2. So that's your b value right there, 1, two waves occur in 2 pi, or 360. 1, and here's your second wave, 2. So that's your b value is 2. 2. All right, and then your equation always starts out y equals or f of x equals. Looking here on the y-axis is going through the middle of the function, so this is going to be a sine function. And since it's going up here, this is going to be the positive amplitude. So it's going to be positive 2 sine of, and then we're going to put our b value. So our b value is 2. So it's going to be 2x. And then on the end, we're going to add our midline. So then plus 2 on the end. Okay, I know that this isn't really that beneficial because I haven't shown you many examples, but tomorrow you'll be seeing more examples of this and it will help you with the problems that you have for homework. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please let me know if you have questions. I do expect you will have questions for this, so please, please, please ask them. I'll be very happy to help you. Just send me a picture in their mind and I got you. Okay, I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Bye.